A widowed father attempts to rebuild his life alongside his son, a child too wounded to trust anyone. But everything changes when a temporary nanny faces the boy's fury, and instead of backing down, shares her own pain. This unexpected gesture breaks a 4-year silence and initiates an impossible transformation. What no one imagines is that this bond will trigger not only healing, but also a confrontation with buried lies, and the birth of a new family. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. Let's continue. The mansion in the Belgravia neighborhood in London had everything money could buy: impeccable gardens, a heated swimming pool, enormous rooms with views of the Chiltern Hills. But no amount of luxury could fill the void that had taken over those corridors since the tragedy that changed everything. Raphael Alistair, at 36 years old, was a successful businessman, respected in the real estate market, but completely lost when it came to his own son. Miles was only 8 years old and carried on his shoulders a weight no child should ever know, since the accident that took his mother. Away 4 years ago, the boy had transformed into someone unrecognizable. The cheerful and affectionate child who used to run through the gardens gave way to a boy locked within himself, explosive, incapable of trusting any adult who tried to approach him. Raphael watched his son drift further and further away, as if he were on the other side of an abyss he didn't know how to cross. Nannies came and went. Each one promised it would be different, that they had experience with difficult children, that they knew modern educational techniques. They lasted days, sometimes only hours. The last one had left the house that very morning, her blouse torn and tears of frustration streaming down her face, after Miles threw tempera paint on her back and locked his bedroom door from the inside. Raphael didn't even try to convince her to stay. He knew it would be useless. Stella, a distant cousin of his late wife, observed everything from the living room window with an expression difficult to decipher. She had lived in the mansion since Marianne passed, assuming the role of house administrator, organizing bills, supervising staff, taking care of details that Raphael, immersed in work and grief, could no longer manage. She was 42, her dark hair always pulled back in a perfect bun, elegant clothes, and a presence that filled every space. She said she was there out of love for her cousin's memory, out of devotion to little Miles. But there was something in her eyes, a possessive intensity, that sometimes bothered Raphael without him being able to explain exactly why. That September afternoon, with the spring sun illuminating the garden trees, Raphael was in his office trying to concentrate on contracts when the doorbell rang. Stella hurried down the stairs, as she always did, controlling who entered and exited that house as if she were the true owner. Through the window, Raphael saw a young woman getting out of an economy car, holding a small backpack and looking at the mansion with a mixture of admiration and nervousness. Claire Madison was 24 years old and had just been sent by the Domestic Services Agency to cover an emergency day off for the cook. She wasn't a nanny. She had no training in pedagogy or child psychology. She was just a nursing student doing temporary jobs to pay for college. She wore simple jeans, worn sneakers and a white blouse, her dark brown hair tied in a ponytail. She had large, expressive eyes that conveyed a mixture of determination and kindness. Stella received her at the door with calculated coldness, examining her from head to toe like someone evaluating a product on a shelf. "You're the substitute?" she asked without even greeting her. "Yes, I am. Claire Madison. I came to help in the kitchen today. The agency called me last minute." "I hope you at least know how to cook. We don't tolerate amateurism here." Claire swallowed the retort that almost escaped her lips. She needed that money. Her college tuition was overdue and every day of work counted. "Don't worry, I'll do my best." Stella led her to the kitchen, gave quick, dry instructions about the dinner that needed to be prepared, and left without looking back. Claire took a deep breath, tied on her apron, and began to work. The kitchen was immense, equipped with state-of-the-art appliances, so different from the cramped kitchen of the apartment she shared with her mother and younger sister in Islington. But cooking had always been something Claire did with love. Ever since she was a child alongside her grandmother, who was no longer with them. While chopping vegetables and seasoning the chicken, Claire heard sounds coming from upstairs, muffled shouts, something hitting the wall, a crash. Then silence. She looked at the ceiling, uneasy, but continued working. It wasn't her problem. She was just a temporary worker. She would be out of there in a few hours. But the silence didn't last long. Another crash, louder, followed by an angry cry that chilled Claire to the bone. It wasn't a normal child's cry, it was a scream of pain, of desperation, of someone drowning and not knowing how to ask for help. She dropped the knife, wiped her hands on her apron and left the kitchen. She climbed the stairs following the sound, her heart pounding. In the second-floor hallway, she saw a door ajar, with marks of punches and kicks on the wood. She hesitated for a second. It wasn't her place. But the crying continued, growing more desperate, and something inside her couldn't ignore it. Claire pushed the door open slowly. The room was destroyed. Torn books scattered on the floor, broken toys, the curtain ripped from the window, and in the middle, of it all, sitting on the floor with his knees bent against his chest, was Miles. A small boy, too thin, with messy brown hair and eyes red from crying so much. He held a toy car so tightly that his fingers were white, and he was trembling from head to toe. When he saw Claire, Miles shrank back even further, like a cornered animal. His eyes, which should have held the innocence of childhood, were full of rage and fear. "Get out of here!" he screamed, his voice hoarse. "Go away! I don't want you here!" Claire could have obeyed. She could have closed the door, returned to the kitchen, finished dinner and left without looking back. But something in that desperate gaze held her in place. She knew that pain. She had seen it in her own eyes years ago when she lost her older brother in a motorcycle accident. That feeling that the world had collapsed and no one around could understand. She entered the room and closed the door behind her. Miles jumped up, still holding the car. "I told you to leave!" "I know," Claire said, her voice calm without approaching. "But I won't." "Are you just another idiotic nanny my dad hired?" "I don't need a nanny. I don't need anyone." Claire knelt down, bringing herself to the boy's eye level, but maintaining a safe distance. "I'm not a nanny. I'm just someone who came to help in the kitchen. But I heard you crying and I couldn't pretend I didn't." Miles narrowed his eyes, suspicious. "Everyone pretends. Everyone says they care, but no one stays. Everyone leaves." His voice broke on the last word, and Claire felt a tightening in her chest. "You're right. People leave even when we don't want them to. I also lost someone I loved very much. My brother. He was 19 when it happened, and I was 15. I was so angry that I destroyed everything in my room. I ripped up photos, broke things, screamed at everyone who tried to get close." Miles stared at her, the anger giving way to cautious curiosity. "And what happened?" "It took me a long time to understand that destroying things wasn't going to bring my brother back, and that there were people around me who were also suffering, but I wouldn't let anyone get close. I learned that keeping everything inside hurts more than letting it out. But you were older, I'm just a kid. No one understands how I feel." Claire felt tears stinging her eyes, but held them back. "You're right. I was older. But pain doesn't look at age, Miles. Pain is pain, no matter how old you are." The boy blinked, surprised to hear his own name. "How do you know my name?" "I heard someone say it when I arrived." Miles was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the car he still held. Then, in a voice so low that Claire almost didn't hear it, he whispered, "This car was my mum's. She gave it to me on my 4th birthday. It was the last gift I got from her before she—" His voice trailed off, and his body began to tremble again. Claire, acting purely on instinct, approached slowly and sat on the floor beside him without touching him. "You have every right to be angry, Miles. Every right to cry, to scream, to be confused. No one can say you're wrong for feeling what you feel. But everyone wants me to get better. They want me to be good, to obey, to stop making a mess. But I can't. I try, but the anger comes and I can't hold it in. Then don't hold it in. Let it out. But do you know the difference? You can let it out without hurting yourself and without hurting those who are trying to help you. You can cry until you're tired. You can scream into a pillow. You can tell me everything you're feeling and I will listen." Miles looked at her with an expression of disbelief. You won't yell at me. You won't say I'm naughty. No, because I know you're not naughty. You're just hurt. And then something broke inside Miles. The toy car fell from his hand, and he threw himself into Claire's arms, crying in a way he hadn't cried in 4 years, deep, desperate sobs that came from the bottom of his chest. Claire hugged him tightly, stroking his messy hair, letting him soak her blouse with tears that had been dammed up for too long. "It's okay," she whispered, rocking him slowly, just as her mother used to do when she was little. "Cry it all out, my love, cry until you have no more." Tears, I'm here." And she stayed. She stayed there, sitting on the floor of the destroyed room, holding that boy she had just met, as if he were the most important thing in the world. Time stopped. Minutes turned into an hour, maybe more. Miles cried until he had no strength left, until his body completely relaxed, until sleep finally overcame him, exhausted from so much released suffering. Claire looked at the face of the sleeping boy in her lap, his cheeks stained with tears, his lips slightly parted, his breathing finally calm. There was something so fragile in that child, and at the same time something so strong, struggling to survive beneath all that pain. It was then that she heard the door opening slowly. She looked up and saw Raphael standing there, with an expression she had never seen on anyone. It was shock, disbelief, hope, and despair mixed in one man. He looked at his son sleeping in the arms of a stranger and seemed to be witnessing a miracle. Raphael entered the room in silence, as if afraid to break a spell. He approached slowly, knelt beside Claire and stayed there just looking at Miles. His hands trembled. His eyes were moist. "He's sleeping," Claire whispered, afraid of waking the boy. "I know. I saw. Raphael ran a hand over his face, trying to find words. "It's been 4 years since I've been able to get close to him without him screaming, without him pushing me away, without everything turning into a war. I tried everything. Psychologists, therapists, specialized nannies, medicine. Nothing worked. And you... How long have you been here?" "I don't know. An hour, maybe." Raphael shook his head, incredulous. "How did you do that? How did you get him to trust you?" Claire looked at Miles's face, still holding him carefully. "I didn't do anything special. I just listened. I just let him feel what he was feeling without judgment." Raphael was silent for a long time, observing the scene before him. That young woman, whose name he didn't even know, had done in an hour what he hadn't been able to do in 4 years. She had reached his son in a way that no professional, no specialist, no trained person had managed. "What's your name?" he asked finally. Claire Madison." "Claire," he repeated, as if engraving the name. "I don't know who you are, where you came from, what you do. But I need you to come back. I need you to stay, at least a few times a week. I'll pay whatever it takes. I'm begging you." Claire blinked, surprised. "Mr. Alistair, I'm not a nanny. I'm a nursing student. I only came here today to help in the kitchen because the agency called me last minute. I don't have training to care for children. I don't care what training you have or don't have. You have something no one else has managed to have. My son's trust. He's in your arms, sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. That's worth more than any diploma." Claire looked at the boy, feeling the weight of the responsibility those words carried. "I don't know if I'm the right person for this." "You are," Raphael said with absolute certainty. "I saw the way you looked at him. I saw that you understand his pain. Please, Claire, it's not for me. It's for him." She took a deep breath. She thought about college, about temporary jobs, about the busy life she led. But she also thought about the boy still sleeping in her lap, about the pain she saw in those eyes, about the feeling that perhaps she could make a difference in someone's life. "All right," she said finally. "I'll come back. But I can't come every day. I have classes. I have other jobs. 3 times a week. I'll pay 3 times what any nanny would earn. You choose the days you can." Claire nodded slowly, still processing the decision she had just made. Raphael carefully picked up his son, trying not to wake him, and carried him to the bed. Miles stirred a little but didn't wake up. Claire got up, wiped away the tears that had fallen without her noticing, and looked around the destroyed room. "Tomorrow, when I come back, I'll help him tidy this up, if he wants to." Raphael accompanied her to the bedroom door, and before they left, he gently held her arm. Thank you for not leaving." Claire just nodded, not knowing what to say. She went downstairs in silence, returned to the kitchen, and finished preparing dinner as if in a trance. When she finally left the mansion and got on the bus that would take her home, Claire leaned, her head against the window, and let the tears fall freely. She didn't know what she was getting into. She didn't know if she would be able to help that boy heal. She didn't know if she would be strong enough to deal with the pain of a child who had lost his mother so traumatically. But one thing she knew, she couldn't abandon him now. Meanwhile, in the Alistair mansion, Stella watched everything from afar, hidden behind her bedroom door, her fists clenched and a silent rage growing inside her. She saw the way Raphael looked at that young woman. She saw the gratitude, the hope, the sparkle in his eyes that he hadn't had in years. And she saw, more than anything, the threat that presence represented. Stella had lived in that house for 4 years, controlling every detail, every decision, every penny that came in and went out. She had built a silent empire of manipulations and lies, siphoning money under the pretext of expensive treatments for Miles, inventing false receipts, creating imaginary expenses. No one questioned it, because Raphael was too busy suffering and working to notice what was happening right under his nose. And now, this young woman appeared, with her kind eyes and her ability to do in an hour what no one had achieved in years. Stella felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. If that nanny gained Raphael's trust, if Miles improved, if the house returned to normal, someone might start asking questions. Someone might review accounts. Someone might discover the truth. This could not happen. Stella had invested too much time, too much effort, built too much of a life on those lies. She would not allow a stranger to destroy everything. She went back to her room, closed the door, and sat in front of her computer. She opened an incognito tab in the browser and started searching. Claire Madison, nursing student, Islington neighborhood, worked temporary jobs. It wouldn't be difficult to find out more. It wouldn't be difficult to find weaknesses, secrets, something she could use against her when necessary. Stella smiled at the computer screen, a cold, calculating expression. If that young woman thought she would be welcome there, she was very wrong. And if Raphael thought he had finally found someone to help his son, he would soon discover that nothing in that house happened without Stella's permission. The war had just begun, and Stella had no intention of losing. The next morning, Claire returned to the Alistair mansion with a heavy heart and a mixture of nervousness and determination. She wore the same jeans and a simple blouse, carrying in her backpack some materials she had brought from home: colored pencils, paper, a children's book that had belonged to her brother. She didn't know if they would be useful, but she wanted to be prepared for anything. Stella greeted her at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So you accepted Raphael's invitation. How admirable for someone who only came here to cover a day off." Claire ignored the mocking tone. "I'm here to help Miles if he wants me to." "Ah, Miles. Our dear problematic boy. Do you really think you'll succeed where trained psychologists have failed? How audacious." "I don't know if I will, but I'll try." Stella examined her from head to toe with poorly disguised contempt. "We'll see how long you last." Claire went upstairs, her heart beating faster with each step. When she reached Miles's bedroom door, she knocked lightly. "Miles? It's me, Claire. Can I come?" "In?" Silence. Then a low voice. "The door's open." Claire entered and found the boy sitting on the floor, in the same spot as yesterday, surrounded by the room's wreckage. But this time, he wasn't crying. He was just sitting, looking at his own hands, with a lost expression. "Hi," Claire said, sitting beside him, at the same respectful distance as before. "Hi. Did you sleep well?" Miles shrugged. "I think so. I don't remember waking up screaming in the middle of the night, so it must have been better than usual." Claire felt her chest tighten at that sad response, said so naturally. "I brought some things. I thought maybe we could tidy up the room together, but only if you want to." Miles looked at the wreckage around them. Why do you want to help me? You don't even know me." Claire thought about the answer for a moment. "Because I remember what it was like to be hurt and feel like no one understood, and because I believe you deserve to have someone by your side, even if it's just to stay silent when words don't come." Miles looked at her with those big, sad eyes, and Claire saw the exact moment he decided to trust her again. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The boy picked up one of the torn books and began to gather the pieces. "I didn't mean to do this. I liked this book. But the anger came, and I couldn't stop." "I know. Anger can be like that. But let's see if we can glue the pieces back together, okay?" And so, side by side, Claire and Miles began to tidy up the room. It wasn't a silent task. Miles spoke, little by little, about small, everyday things, about what he liked and didn't like, about memories of his mother that he cherished like precious treasures. Claire listened to everything, asking questions when she felt it was right, remaining silent when she felt he needed it. Raphael passed by the door a few times during the morning, always stopping to observe the scene, always with that expression of disbelief. His son was talking. He was smiling. He was being a child, if only for a few moments. And while this was happening, downstairs Stella was making calls, sending messages, setting in motion a plan that only she knew. She would not allow that intruder to conquer a space that was hers. She would not allow Raphael to look at that young woman with admiration, and above all, she would not allow anyone to bring light into that house, because light had the dangerous habit of revealing what was hidden in the shadows. The battle had only just begun, and Claire had no idea what awaited her. The following weeks brought changes that no one in the Alistair mansion would have believed possible. Claire arrived 3 times a week, always punctual, always with that gentle smile that lit up her face when she saw Miles waiting for her at his bedroom window. The boy, who used to spend days locked up without speaking to anyone, now opened the door as soon as he heard her footsteps in the hallway. Raphael observed everything with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Miles began to eat better, accepting dishes he had previously refused with shouts. He started taking baths without needing threats or pleas. He tidied his room, put away his toys, even put his dirty clothes in the hamper. These were small gestures, simple things any 8-year-old child should do, but for Miles, they represented a silent revolution. Claire didn't follow any manual. She had no applied psychology techniques. She didn't use behavioral methods. She was simply present. She sat on the bedroom floor with Miles and drew, or read stories with funny voices that made the boy laugh for the first time in years. Sometimes they sat in silence, just side by side in the garden, watching the butterflies land on the flowers that Marianne had planted before she passed. Miles talked about his mother now, something he had never done with anyone. He told her how she sang off-key while cooking, how she danced with him in the living room on Sunday mornings, how she read stories before bed doing all the characters' voices. Claire listened to every word as if it were a precious gift, validating every feeling, every memory, letting Miles keep Marianne's presence alive without turning it into a painful taboo. Raphael began to participate in these afternoons when he noticed Claire was around. Initially, he stayed at a distance, just observing. Then, he gradually approached, joining them in the garden, accepting the invitation to play ball, laughing at Miles's jokes. For the first time in 4 years, father and son were rebuilding a bridge that seemed forever destroyed, and Claire was right at the center of this reconstruction, unaware of how much her presence was changing not only Miles but the entire dynamic of that house. One afternoon, after Miles went to take a bath, Raphael invited Claire to have coffee in the kitchen. She accepted, still a little shy about the closeness that was forming. They sat at the large table with fine porcelain cups, and for the first time they truly talked, not about Miles but about themselves. "How's nursing school?" Raphael asked, stirring his coffee distractedly. "Busy, but I like it. I've always wanted to care for people." "That's evident. You have a natural gift for it." Claire smiled, looking at her cup. "My grandmother was a nurse. I spent my childhood watching her care for everyone in the neighborhood. I think I learned from her that caring isn't just about medicine and bandages. It's about being present, about listening, about making someone feel less alone." Raphael observed her carefully, noticing details he hadn't noticed before. The way she spoke with her hands, how her eyes sparkled when she talked about things. She loved how a curl of hair always escaped her ponytail, and she tucked it behind her ear with an automatic gesture. "Do you live with your family?" "With my mother and my younger sister, Julia. She's 16, finishing high school. We live in a small apartment in Islington, but it's our little corner. My father left us when Julia was a baby, never showed up again. My mother works as a seamstress, doing custom orders. It's tough, but we manage." There was pride in Claire's voice, not bitterness. Raphael admired that, her ability to talk about difficulties without playing the victim. "And your brother? You said you lost him." Claire's face closed for a moment, the old pain resurfacing. "David. He was 19, worked as a pizza delivery driver to help at home. It was a motorcycle accident 9 years ago. Nothing was ever the same after that. My mother went into deep depression. Julia was too young to understand, and I had to grow up too fast. I became an adult overnight. I'm sorry. Me too. But that's what made me understand Miles so well. I know what it's like to lose someone suddenly, without warning, without a chance to say goodbye. I know the anger that comes with the pain, and I know there's no deadline for healing. Everyone takes the time they need." Raphael was silent, processing those words. Claire was 24, but she spoke with a maturity that came from someone who knew suffering well. "You're an incredible person, Claire. I don't know how to thank you for what you're doing for my son." "You don't need to thank me. Miles is a special child. He just needed someone who wouldn't try to fix him, because he's not broken. He's just hurt. And hurts. Heal with time, patience, and affection." At that moment, Miles entered the kitchen with wet hair, wearing his superhero pajamas, and threw himself into Claire's lap with a naturalness that made Raphael's heart tighten. Seeing his son being so affectionate, so at ease, was a daily miracle. "Claire, are you staying for dinner, please?" "Oh, my love, I can't today. I have to help my mother with some orders. But I'll be back on Thursday, deal?" "Promise?" "I promise." Miles hugged her tightly, as if afraid she would disappear. Raphael saw Claire's gaze on his son, full of genuine affection, and felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in so long that he almost forgot what it was like. From the hallway, hidden behind the door, Stella watched the scene with a clenched jaw. She saw the way Raphael looked at that young woman. She saw how Miles clung to her. She saw the intimacy that was forming fast and dangerous. In recent days, Stella had been discreetly following Claire. She knew where she lived, knew her routine, knew she took 2 buses to get to the mansion. She had photographs of her entering and leaving college. She had spoken with neighbors in Islington, posing as an old family friend. She was building a complete dossier, waiting for the right moment to use it. But seeing that scene, seeing Miles in her lap, seeing Raphael with that enamored look, made something snap inside Stella. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to act soon, before that woman became too deeply rooted in that family's life. Stella went back to her room and picked up the phone. She dialed a number she had saved months ago from a man she met at one of the social events she frequented, a private investigator, the kind who didn't ask too many questions about the ethics of the jobs he accepted. "Hello, Marcus. It's Stella. Remember me? I need your services. It's urgent." The voice on the other end was deep and professional. "What do you need?" "I need you to investigate someone for me. A young woman named Claire Madison. I want to know everything about her. Everything. And I want to know if there's anything I can use against her. Any dubious past, any debt, any problem with the law, anything. It'll be expensive. I don't care about the price, I only care about the results." Stella hung up the phone and went to her bedroom window, watching Claire say goodbye to Miles in the garden. She saw the long hug, saw Raphael accompanying the young woman to the gate, saw the way he held the car door open for her, as if she were an important person. "Enjoy it while you can, darling," Stella murmured to herself. "Your peace won't last long." The following Thursday, Claire arrived at the mansion with a bag of craft supplies. She had planned to make kites with Miles, taking advantage of the good wind blowing over London. The boy received the idea with enthusiasm, something that would have been unthinkable before. They spent the entire afternoon in the garden, assembling the kites with coloured paper and bamboo sticks. Claire taught Miles how to make the tails, balance the weight, and tie the string. Raphael joined them after a virtual meeting, taking off his jacket and rolling up the sleeves of his dress shirt. For the first time in years, the three of them looked like a family. When the kites finally soared into the sky, colouring the afternoon blue, Miles screamed with pure, vibrant joy, bringing tears to Claire's eyes. Raphael was beside her, holding his own line, and when their eyes met, there was something there that went beyond gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly, so only she could hear. "For what?" "For giving me my son back." Claire smiled, wiping away a tear that escaped. "He was always here. He was just hidden beneath the pain, and so were you, if I may say so." Raphael was surprised by the observation. "Me too." "Yes. You were also suffering alone, keeping everything inside. Trying to be strong for him, but forgetting to take care of yourself." It was true, and Raphael knew it. In the past 4 years, he had thrown himself into work, into responsibilities, into desperate attempts to fix Miles, but he had never stopped to process his own pain. He had never truly cried for Mariana's loss. He had never allowed anyone to care for him. "How can you see me so clearly?" Claire shrugged, looking at the kite dancing in the wind. "I guess I recognize people who carry the weight of the world on their shoulders because I've done it too." They stood there side by side, in comfortable silence while Miles ran through the garden laughing, happy in a way that seemed impossible a few months ago. From the second-floor window, Stella watched everything with clenched fists. Marcus had called that morning with the investigation results. Claire Madison was exactly what she seemed, a hard-working, honest young woman with no serious debts, no criminal record, nothing that could be used against her. It was frustrating, but Stella hadn't gotten where she was by giving up easily. If she couldn't destroy Claire through her past, she would destroy her through her present, and she knew exactly how. That night, after Claire had left, Stella invited Raphael for a talk in his office. She carried a folder full of papers, with a grave and worried expression. "Raphael, we need to talk about something delicate." He looked up from the documents he was reviewing. "What is it, Stella?" "It's about Claire." Raphael's body tensed immediately. "What about Claire?" "I didn't want to have to bring this up, but it would be irresponsible of me not to. I've been receiving some comments from the other staff in the house. They're uncomfortable with her presence." "Uncomfortable? Why?" Stella sighed theatrically, as if genuinely concerned. "They say she's getting too close to you, that she seems to have ulterior motives, that she might be using Miles to get close to you, to your money." Raphael stood up from his chair, anger flashing in his eyes. "That's ridiculous. Claire isn't like that. I know you want to believe that, but think about it, Raphael. She appeared out of nowhere, won your son's trust in a few hours, accepted a very high salary without batting an eye. Don't you think it's strange? Don't you think it's too convenient? Claire is sincere, I see. It in her eyes. You see what you want to see because you're desperate for someone to help Miles, but I've been around people longer than you imagine. I know the tactics some women use to get what they want." Raphael shook his head, refusing to accept it. "You're mistaken. Claire isn't self-serving." Stella changed tactics, leaving the folder on the desk. "All right, Raphael, I understand your position. But please, at least be careful. Protect yourself. Protect Miles. Don't let someone you barely know have so much power over your lives, if she truly is who you believe her to. She won't mind a few precautions." She left the office, leaving her poisoned words hanging in the air. Raphael was left alone, looking at the folder Stella had left, but he didn't open it. He didn't want to feed those doubts. He trusted Claire. He trusted what he saw, what he felt. But the seed of distrust, once planted, is difficult to completely uproot. Meanwhile, Claire arrived home at the Islington apartment and found her mother, Mrs. Regina, sitting in the living room surrounded by fabrics and threads. The 52-year-old woman had grey hair and hands calloused from so much work, but a smile that lit up her face when she saw her daughter. "How was your day, my dear?" Claire collapsed onto the sofa beside her mother, taking off her shoes. "It was good, Mom. Miles is getting better every day. Today we made kites. That boy is lucky to have found you." "I'm the lucky one to have found him. You know that feeling when you're in the right place, doing the right thing? That's what I feel when I'm there." Mrs. Regina looked at her daughter with a mixture of tenderness and concern. "But what about you, Claire? You're getting very attached to this boy, to this family. I'm afraid you'll get hurt when all this ends." "Why would it have to end?" "Because you're temporary in their lives, my dear. You're the nanny. Eventually this boy will grow up. He'll get better and he won't need you anymore. And then you'll suffer from the separation." Claire fell silent, thinking about her mother's words. She knew her mother was partly right, but something inside her refused to accept that this was just a job, just a temporary phase. Miles had become too important. And Raphael, she shook her head, pushing away dangerous thoughts. Raphael was her boss, nothing more. He was Miles's father, a man still grieving for the wife he lost. She couldn't confuse his gratitude with anything else. "I'll be fine, Mom. I promise." But not even Claire fully believed her own words. The following days brought more closeness between Claire and Raphael. He began to ask her opinion on things related to Miles, but also on other matters. They talked about books, about movies, about dreams and plans for the future. They laughed together at silly jokes. They shared tasks in the kitchen when Claire stayed later. Miles noticed everything, with that keen intuition children have. He saw the way his father looked at Claire, saw how she blushed when he approached, and instead of feeling jealous or angry, he felt hope. Hope that perhaps one day they could be a real family. One afternoon, Miles asked Claire while they were drawing together, "Claire, do you like my dad?" She almost dropped her glass of water, caught by surprise. "Of course I do, Miles. Your dad is a very good person." "That's not what I meant. Do you like him the way people like each other when they want to be together?" Claire felt her face flush. "Miles, because I think he likes you, and I like you too. It would be nice if you stayed here forever, not just 3 times a week." Claire hugged the boy, not knowing what to answer. Her heart was racing, confused feelings mixing in her chest. Did she like Raphael? Yes, she did. She admired him, felt attracted to him, felt butterflies in her stomach when he smiled at her. But it was too soon, too complicated, too risky to admit it. "Miles, sometimes things aren't as simple as we'd like them to be. But they could be if we wanted them to." And he was right, so small, yet so wise. That same night, Stella put the second phase of her plan into action. She called a meeting with all the house staff in the kitchen, knowing Raphael was on an important call and Claire had left. "Girls, I need to talk to you about something serious. It's about the new nanny." The 3 women who worked in the house looked at Stella attentively. Carla, the cook, Jessica, the housekeeper, and Nora, the governess. "What about her?" Nora asked, suspicious. "Don't you find it strange how quickly she got close to Mr. Alistair, how easily she gained Miles's trust? I've spoken to people who know her, and they told me some disturbing things." "What kind of things?" Carla leaned forward, curious. Stella lowered her voice as if sharing a grave secret. "They say she has a history of getting involved with rich men, that she uses her nanny job to get close to vulnerable widowers, that she's tried this before in other families. It was all lies, of course, but Stella knew that rumors once planted grow on their own." "Really?" Jessica's eyes widened. "But she seems so proper." "The worst ones are always the ones who seem proper. I'm keeping an eye on her, and you should too. Anything strange you see, let me know immediately. We have to protect this family." The staff nodded, already beginning to look at Claire with different eyes, with planted distrust. Stella smiled, satisfied. The ground was being prepared. Soon it would be time to deliver the final blow. Meanwhile, Raphael was in his room, lying in bed, unable to sleep. He thought of Claire, her smile, the way she cared for Miles, the lightness she brought into that house. He thought about how long it had been since he felt alive like that, interested in someone, excited to wake up in the morning and know she would be there. But he also thought of Stella's words, the distrust she planted. Could it be possible that Claire had ulterior motives? Could it be possible that he was deceiving himself, seeing what he wanted to see? He shook his head, pushing away the thoughts. No. Claire was genuine, he was sure of it. He had to trust his own instinct, what his heart told him. But the doubt, small and insidious, had already taken root, and Stella knew it was only a matter of time until those roots grew enough to destroy everything. The following week, Claire noticed subtle changes in the staff's behavior. Carla was no longer as warm, Jessica avoided her in the hallways, Nora looked at her in a strange way. She didn't understand what had happened, but she felt the heavy atmosphere of the house whenever she crossed paths with them. Raphael was also different, more distant, more reserved. He was still kind, still talked to her, but there was a barrier that hadn't been there before. Claire felt her chest tighten, but she didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to ask what was wrong without seeming intrusive. Only Miles remained the same, clinging to her, happy, improving every day. And it was for him that Claire kept coming back, even sensing that something was changing, even foreseeing a storm brewing on the horizon. Stella, satisfied with the climate of distrust she had created, decided it was time to act. But she needed something concrete, something undeniable. Planting doubts wasn't enough. She needed proof that would destroy Claire once and for all. And so, walking through the mansion's corridors on a quiet afternoon, Stella passed by the door of Marianne's old room. The room had been locked since she passed, preserved exactly as it was on her last day. Raphael didn't have the courage to touch anything, to confront that pain. Stella had a copy of the key. She entered the silent room, covered in dust, frozen in time. She went to the dressing table and opened Marianne's jewelry box. Inside, among necklaces and bracelets, was what she was looking for: a pair of diamond earrings, valuable, unique, unmistakable. They had belonged to Marianne's grandmother. They were a family heirloom. Stella picked up one of the earrings, feeling its weight in her hand. She smiled. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. She put the earring in her pocket and left the room, locking the door again. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the right moment, the moment Claire let her guard down, the moment she could plant that earring somewhere that would definitively incriminate her. The trap was set, and Claire, innocent and trusting, had no idea of the precipice opening beneath her feet. The day began like any other. Claire arrived at the mansion in the morning, bringing materials for a new activity with Miles, planting sunflower seeds in the garden. The boy awaited her eagerly on the veranda, already wearing his mother's gardening boots and gloves. "Claire, you took so long, I thought you weren't coming." She laughed, ruffling his hair. "How could I miss our gardening day? I brought special seeds a friend from college gave me. They're giant sunflowers. They can grow up to 2 meters tall." Miles vibrated with enthusiasm. Raphael, observing from his office window, felt his chest tighten with emotion. In recent months he had seen his son reborn before his eyes, and all thanks to that young woman with a sweet smile and eyes full of light. The doubts Stella had planted were still there, small and persistent, but Raphael tried to ignore them. Every time he saw Claire with Miles, every time he talked to her and saw the sincerity in her eyes, he knew he couldn't believe the rumors. Claire was real. She was good. She was everything he and Miles needed. But Stella was patient. And that day, after weeks of careful preparation, she would put her plan into action. Claire spent the entire morning in the garden with Miles, digging holes, planting seeds, watering the earth. They talked about how cool it would be to see the flowers grow, about how sunflowers always turn towards the sun, about hope and new beginnings. Miles was so happy that even Raphael came down to join them, taking off his jacket and getting his hands dirty alongside his son. It was a perfect moment. The three of them together, laughing, working side by side, looking like a real family. Claire felt her heart overflowing with happiness, with belonging, with love for those two people who had become so important to her. When they finished, it was almost lunchtime. Claire went to the downstairs bathroom to wash her hands, leaving her backpack in the living room as she always did. It was a simple, old black backpack, with worn zippers and a mended strap. She carried only the essentials in it: wallet, cell phone, a water bottle, some materials for activities with Miles. Stella waited until Claire disappeared down the hallway. Then, with quick and precise movements, she picked up the backpack, opened the side pocket, and placed the diamond earring she had stolen from Marianne's room inside. She closed everything back up, put the backpack back exactly where it was, and returned to her observation post, her heart pounding with adrenaline. The trap was set. Now it was just a matter of pulling the trigger. She waited until after lunch, when Claire was playing with Miles in the game room. Then she hurried downstairs, with a panicked expression on her face, calling Raphael at the top of her voice. "Raphael, Raphael, for God's sake, come here." He came out of his office alarmed, followed by Claire and Miles. "What is it, Stella? What happened?" "Marianne's earring. The diamond earring that belonged to her grandmother. It's gone." Raphael turned pale. "What do you mean, gone? That room has been locked for years." "I know, but today I went in to clean it, taking advantage of you being home. When I opened the jewelry box, I noticed one of the earrings was missing. The complete pair was there last week. I saw it when I wiped down the dressing table. Someone entered that room and stole it." Claire felt a chill down her spine. There was something wrong with the situation, something calculated in Stella's hysteria. "Are you sure it was there last week?" Raphael asked, trying to keep calm. "Absolutely. I know it was, Raphael. Someone in this house took that earring." "This is absurd," said Nora, who had appeared, drawn by the shouts. "No one here is a thief." "Then how do you explain its disappearance?" Stella looked around theatrically. "Unless someone from outside had access to the house, someone new whom we don't really know." Her gaze fell on Claire, full of veiled accusation. Raphael felt anger rise. "Stella, if you're implying that Claire—" "I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying we need to search the house. If no one here took it, then the earring is still somewhere. Unless someone took it away, of course." Claire felt her legs go weak. She knew exactly where this was going. "I didn't take anything," she said, her voice firm despite her fear. "I've never been in that room, never touched anyone's things." "Then you won't mind if I search your backpack, right?" Stella was already moving toward the living room. "Just to be sure." "Stella, this is an insult," Raphael said. "Claire is not a thief." I know, but if she really didn't take it, she won't have a problem showing she doesn't have anything on her, will she? It's just to clear up any doubts." Claire looked at Raphael, seeing the hesitation in his eyes. That 1-second hesitation, that moment of doubt he couldn't completely hide. And it was as if the ground disappeared beneath her feet. "All right," she said, her voice trembling. "You can search. I have nothing to hide." Stella picked up the backpack with a poorly disguised triumphant smile. She opened the main compartment, rummaged through the contents. Then she opened the side pocket and pulled out the diamond earring. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire froze, staring at that sparkling object, having no idea how it had ended up there. Her brain refused to process what she was seeing. "No," she whispered. "No, this isn't possible. I never... See?" Stella held up the earring for everyone to see. It was in her backpack the whole time. "I didn't put that there," Claire cried, panic taking over. "Someone planted it. I swear I never touched that earring," Miles began to cry, holding Claire's arm. "She didn't do anything. Claire isn't a thief. Someone's lying." Raphael stood motionless, looking from the earring to Claire, with an expression of shock and confusion. He wanted to believe her, he really did, but the evidence was right there, undeniable in Stella's hand. "Raphael, please," Claire turned to him, her eyes full of tears. "You have to believe me. I would never do this. Someone put that earring in my backpack." "Who would do that?" Stella asked, indignant. "Why would anyone want to incriminate you?" "I don't know, but I swear it wasn't me." Raphael ran a hand over his face, clearly torn. Claire saw him open his mouth to speak, saw his hesitation, saw that he didn't know whom to believe, and that second of doubt was enough to break her heart into 1,000 pieces. "Do you really think I did this?" she asked, her voice broken. "After everything, after all these months, do you think I'm capable of stealing?" "I don't know what to think, Claire. The evidence can be forged. Someone is setting me up." "Or you're lying," Stella said with false sadness. "I understand, Raphael, it's hard. To accept that we were deceived by someone we trusted. But the facts are there. Claire looked around, seeing the faces of Nora, Carla, and Jessica. They all looked at her with distrust, with pity, with disappointment. No one believed her. No one was on her side, except Miles. The boy threw himself in front of her, spreading his arms as if to protect her. "You're all wrong, all of you. Claire would never do that. She's good. She takes care of me." "Miles, son." Raphael tried to approach, but the boy recoiled. "No, you're being unfair. You're accusing her. Without even listening properly. You're just like everyone else. You don't trust anyone." His son's words hit Raphael like a punch. Claire knelt down, bringing herself to Miles's height, and held his face in her hands. "Miles, my love, listen. I need to leave now." "No, you can't. You promised you'd stay." "I know I promised, but sometimes things don't go the way we want them to. You'll be okay, do you hear? You're strong, you're brave." "I don't want to be strong without you. I need you." Claire hugged the boy tightly, letting her own tears fall freely. She knew she was saying goodbye. She knew this was the end. Even if she could prove her innocence later, even if they discovered the truth, that moment of hesitation from Raphael had destroyed the trust between them. And without trust, there was no way to continue. "You'll find other people who will take care of you, better people than me." "There's no one better than you," Miles sobbed, clinging to her. "Please don't go, please." Raphael approached, trying to separate his son from Claire, but Miles struggled, screaming. "Let me go. I don't want to be here without her. I hate you. I hate all of you. Miles, please. I hate. Claire managed to free herself from the embrace, stood up on shaky legs, and picked up her backpack. She looked at Raphael one last time, seeing the confusion, the pain, the doubt in his eyes. "I never took that earring," she said with all the dignity she could muster. "And the fact that you can't believe me tells me everything I need to know." She left the mansion without looking back, even with Miles's screams echoing through the corridors, even with her heart shattered in her chest. She got on the bus crying, not caring about the people who stared. She arrived home and locked herself in her room, where she could finally completely break down. Mrs. Regina and Julia tried to console her, but Claire was inconsolable. She cried for hours, for Miles, for Raphael, for everything she had built and watched crumble in a matter of minutes. In the Alistair mansion, chaos had set in. Miles was out of control, locked in his room, destroying everything in his path. He threw toys against the wall, tore up the drawings he had made with. Claire ripped the sheets from his bed. He screamed and cried, calling for her, begging her to come back. Raphael tried to enter the room several times, but Miles wouldn't let him. He threw things at him, screamed that he hated him, that he would never forgive him. The father stood outside the door listening to his son destroy himself, feeling like the worst human being in the world. "Miles, please, open the door. We need to talk." "I don't want to talk to you. You sent her away. You didn't believe her." "Son, go away. Leave me alone. I don't need you. I don't need anyone." Raphael leaned his forehead against the door, tears finally falling. He had failed again. After months of seeing his son improve, seeing light at the end of the tunnel, he had destroyed everything with his hesitation, with his lack of faith. Stella watched everything from the hallway with a cold satisfaction. It had worked perfectly. Claire was gone. Miles would become uncontrollable again, and Raphael would never trust anyone. The house was safe in her hands again. But then Miles stopped screaming, stopped breaking things, stopped crying, and that silence was even more frightening than all the previous noise. Raphael opened the door with the spare key and found his son sitting on the floor of the destroyed room, with empty eyes, hugging the toy car his mother had given him. He didn't react when his father approached. He didn't react to anything. "Miles, son." Silence. "Miles, please, talk to me." Nothing. It was as if the boy had completely disconnected from the world. He had returned to that dark place where he lived before Claire appeared, but this time it was even worse. He had tasted what it was like, to have someone who understood him, and he had lost it again. He had learned to trust and seen that trusting only brought pain. Raphael picked up his son and carried him to bed. Miles didn't resist, but he also didn't cooperate. He was just an inert body, a rag doll. His father stayed there holding his hand, whispering apologies that weren't heard. The days that followed were a nightmare. Miles didn't speak, didn't eat, didn't leave his bed. He stared at the ceiling with lifeless eyes, ignoring everything and everyone. Raphael called pediatricians, psychologists, tried everything, but everyone said the same thing. The boy was in deep depression, in emotional shock, and nothing would work if the person he had lost didn't come back. "He needs Claire," the psychologist said, after 3 days of trying to get Miles to react. She was his anchor, the person who helped him return to the world. Losing her was like losing his mother again. He won't get better until she comes back. But she accused us of injustice. She won't want to come back. Then you need to find out the truth about what happened. Because this boy is dying inside, Mr. Alistair, and if we don't do something soon, it might be too late. Raphael spent the night awake, thinking, going over every detail of that day. The way Stella had appeared so conveniently hysterical, the way the earring was exactly where she could find it. The perfect staging, as if everything had been planned. For the first time he allowed the suspicions about Stella, which he had repressed for so long, to surface. And the more he thought, the more the pieces fit together. He went to the house's security system and began to review the recordings. He looked at the days before the incident, frame by frame, and then he found it. An image of Stella entering Marianne's room alone, a few days before the accusation. She stayed inside for several minutes. When she came out, her hand was in her pocket, as if carrying something small. Raphael's heart pounded. He kept looking. He found more images. Stella picking up Claire's backpack when she wasn't looking, opening the side pocket, putting something inside, closing everything back up. The rage that overcame him was so intense that he had to restrain himself from running upstairs and confronting Stella right then and there. But he needed more. He needed definitive proof. He reviewed more recordings. He found audio of the conversation Stella had with the staff, spreading rumors about Claire. He found records of calls to unknown numbers, probably the investigator she hired. And then, reviewing the financial files he had never carefully checked, he found the complete truth. Embezzlement, false receipts, invented treatments for Miles, all using his son's name, his grief, his pain. Stella had stolen hundreds of thousands of pounds over 4 years, building a hidden fortune at the family's expense. Raphael sat in his office chair, trembling, with rage and disgust. He picked up the phone and called his lawyer. Then he called the police. In a few hours, Stella was being interrogated. The evidence was presented, and the truth finally came to light. She tried to deny it at first, but when she saw the images, the audio, the bank records, she collapsed. She admitted everything. The setup against Claire, the embezzlement, the lies. She said she had done it because it was her right, because she had taken care of that house, because she deserved to be rewarded. She was taken away by the police, crying, screaming, saying that Raphael would regret it, that it was all a misunderstanding. But no one believed her. The evidence was undeniable. With Stella out of the house, Raphael rushed upstairs to Miles's room. The boy was exactly where he had left him, lying down, staring into space. "Miles, son, I found out everything. Claire didn't take the earring. It was Stella who framed her. Claire is innocent. She was always innocent." For the first time in days, Miles moved his eyes in his father's direction. "Claire," he whispered, his voice hoarse from not speaking for so long. "Yes, Claire." She was telling the truth. Stella planted the earring in her backpack. "I saw it on the security cameras. I have proof of everything." "So, Claire didn't abandon me?" "No, son. We wrongly sent her away. We didn't believe her." Miles began to cry again, but this time it wasn't anger or despair. It was relief mixed with sadness. "Will she come back?" Raphael caressed his son's face. "I don't know. I hurt her very much. But I'll try. I'll do everything to bring her back. For you and for me. She has to come back, Dad, she has." "Do I need her?" "I know, I need her too." The next morning, Raphael went to Islington. He found Claire's address after much searching. He knocked on the door of the small apartment, his heart pounding. Mrs. Regina answered with an expression of distrust when she saw who it was. "Do you have the nerve to show up here after what you did to my daughter?" "Please, Mrs. Regina, I know I don't deserve it, but I need to speak with Claire. I need to apologize. I discovered the truth. The truth that anyone with eyes would have seen from the beginning? My daughter cried for days, Mr. Allister. She dedicated herself to that boy, loved him as if he were her own, and you accused her of being a thief without even hesitating. I know, and I will carry that for the rest of my life. But Miles is unwell, very unwell. He hasn't eaten, hasn't drunk water, hasn't reacted to anything since Claire left. The pediatrician said he's wasting away. Please, I'm not asking for my forgiveness. I'm asking for my son's life." Mrs. Regina hesitated, looking at the desperate man at the door. Then she sighed. "Claire isn't here. She went to her aunt's house in the countryside. She didn't want to stay in London after what happened." Raphael's heart sank. "Where? Please, tell me where she is. I'll go there. I'll do whatever it takes." Ambleside. "But I don't know if she'll want to see you." "I have to try. I need her to know the truth. And I need her to know how much she means to us." Mrs. Regina shook her head, but wrote the address on a piece of paper and handed it to him. "If you hurt my daughter again, Mr. Allister, you'll have to deal with me." "I won't, ma'am, I promise." Raphael drove to Ambleside as if on a life-or-death mission, and it was exactly that. He found the house where Claire was staying, a simple but welcoming building with a garden full of flowers. He knocked on the door, his heart almost leaping out of his chest. Claire answered. She was thinner, with deep, dark circles under her eyes, her hair haphazardly tied back. When she saw Raphael, her eyes filled with tears but also with anger. "What are you doing here?" "Please, Claire, let me explain. I found out everything. Stella planted the earring. She was embezzling money from the house using Miles's name. She set everything up to incriminate you because she was afraid you'd discover her crimes. I have proof, recordings, documents, everything. She's been arrested." Claire clung to the doorframe, processing his words. "And you thought it was a good idea to come here and tell me this, that it would make a difference. Claire, I know I hurt you. I know I failed you. But Miles is dying. Literally dying. He won't eat, he won't drink water, he won't speak, he just lies there staring into space. The doctor said he'll only get better if you come back." Claire closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "So you're here for Miles." "I'm here for both of you. For Miles because he needs you, and for me because I need you too. Because I was an idiot, a coward for not believing you. Because I was afraid to trust again, afraid to give myself over, and I let that fear blind me to what was right in front of me." You hesitated, Raphael. You looked at me with doubt in your eyes. "After months by my side, you really thought I was capable of stealing, and I will regret that every day of my life. But please, even if it's not for me, even if you can never forgive me, come back for Miles. He loves you. He needs you." Claire opened her eyes, looking at the broken man in front of her. "And you? Do you need me too?" Raphael looked at her with all the honesty he could muster. "I do. More than I should. More than is safe. I fell in love with you, Claire. And when I realized that, I got scared. Afraid of replacing Marianne, afraid of betraying her memory, afraid of giving myself to someone again and losing them. That's why I hesitated. Not because I doubted you, but because I was terrified of what you represent to me." Claire felt her broken heart begin to mend piece by piece. Claire remained silent for a long moment, looking at Raphael, processing every word he had said. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the regret, the despair. But she also felt her own pain, still alive, still throbbing. "I need time to think," she finally said. "So you hurt me, Raphael, deeply. It's not something that gets fixed with a conversation at the door. I know, and I will respect the time you need, but Miles, I'll see Miles, not for you, for him, because he's not to blame for any of this and doesn't deserve to suffer for the choices of adults." Raphael felt such immense relief that he almost fell to his knees. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But let me make one thing clear. I'm seeing Miles because I care about him, because I know he needs me. It doesn't mean I'm forgiving you or that things will go back to how they were. Understood? Perfectly understood. You set the rules. I'll do everything your way. Claire nodded, picked up her bag, and got into the car with Raphael for the long drive back to London. The journey was silent, tense. She looked out the window, watching the landscape pass, trying to prepare her heart to see Miles again after days that felt like an eternity. When they arrived at the mansion, it was late afternoon. Claire went straight to Miles's room, followed by Raphael, who maintained a respectful distance. She opened the door slowly and saw the boy exactly as Raphael had described, lying on the bed staring at the ceiling, his eyes empty. "Miles?" she called softly. The boy slowly turned his head. When he saw Claire standing there, his eyes widened. For a moment he seemed to think he was dreaming. Then he began to tremble. "Claire, is it really you?" "It's me, my love." Miles got out of bed, staggering, his legs weak from days without moving. Claire ran and caught him in her arms before he fell. The boy clung to her as if she were the only solid thing in a crumbling world, sobbing so hard that his whole body shook. You came back. I thought I'd never see you again. I'm here now. I'm sorry for everything, for my dad not believing you, for them being unfair." Claire hugged the boy tightly, stroking his hair, rocking him slowly. "Shh, you don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. None of this was your fault. But I should have done something. I should have protected you." "Miles, look at me." She held his face in, her hands making him look at her. "You did everything you could do. You stood by me, believed in me when no one else did. You were the only one who defended me. You were perfect. But they sent you away anyway." "Yes, they did. But now the truth has come out and I'm here, aren't I? Are you going to stay? Promise you won't leave again?" Claire looked at Raphael, who was standing at the door with tears in his eyes. Then she looked back at Miles. "I'll stay with you, yes. But we need to talk about some things, okay? We need to get everything sorted out." Miles nodded, still clinging to her. Claire led him to the bed, sat beside him, and finally the boy seemed to relax. She stayed there, holding his hand, softly singing a song she used to sing until he truly fell asleep, peacefully for the first time in days. When she was sure Miles was deeply asleep, Claire left the room and found Raphael waiting in the hallway. "He needs to eat," she said, without preamble. "He's very thin, very weak. I'll prepare a light soup for when he wakes up, and you're going to call the pediatrician for a complete evaluation of him. She's already on her way. I called when you went into the room." "Good, and we need to talk, seriously this time." They went down to the kitchen. Claire began to prepare the soup, while Raphael sat at the table watching her every move. It was comforting to have her back in that space, even knowing that he had a long way to go to regain the trust he had broken. "I know you're doing this for Miles," Raphael began, "but I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to regain your trust too, not just as an employer, but as someone who cares deeply about you." Claire continued chopping vegetables without looking at him. "You hesitated, Raphael. When Stella showed that earring, you hesitated. And I know it was only for a second, but that second showed me that deep down you didn't completely trust me. You're right, and I have no excuse for that. I can only say that I was afraid of being wrong, afraid of trusting again and being betrayed, afraid of everything I was starting to feel for you. But that doesn't justify what I did. Nothing justifies it. I understand fear. I'm also afraid of giving myself to someone who might not value me, who might discard me when it's convenient. That's why I need you to understand one thing. I'm going back to taking care of Miles because he needs me. But regarding us, regarding any possibility of something more, I need you to earn that again. From scratch." Raphael nodded, accepting the terms. "I'll do that, every day for as long as it takes. I'll prove that you can trust me." The pediatrician arrived an hour later and performed a complete evaluation of Miles. She diagnosed dehydration, mild malnutrition, and extreme emotional stress. She prescribed vitamins, recommended psychological counseling, and, most importantly, said that Claire was the best medicine that boy could have. In the days that followed, Claire established a new routine. She arrived in the morning, stayed with Miles until late afternoon, but maintained a professional distance from Raphael. She treated him politely, answered his questions about his son, but there were no longer those long conversations in the kitchen, no more shared laughter, no more the intimacy that existed before. Raphael respected her space, but he didn't give up. He left affectionate notes for her to find, flowers in her car when she left, small gestures that showed he was thinking of her. Claire pretended not to notice, but her heart softened a little each day. Miles, in turn, blossomed again. He started eating well, playing, laughing. But now there was something different about him, a maturity that didn't exist before, as if all that had taught him about loss, about second chances, about the value of having people who truly care. One afternoon, while drawing together in the garden, Miles asked, "Claire, are you still mad at my dad?" She thought about the answer carefully. "I'm not mad, I'm just being careful." What does it mean to be careful? It means I don't want to get hurt again, so I'm taking my time to be sure about things. Miles put down his colored pencil and looked at her with those big eyes, too wise for his age. "He loves you, you know. I see the way he looks at you. And I also see that you like him. So why don't you make things easier?" Claire smiled sadly. "Because sometimes things need to be difficult first to be truly good later." "Have you forgiven him?" The question caught Claire by surprise. She was silent, truly thinking about it. Had she forgiven Raphael? The anger had passed, that was true. She understood his side, understood his fears. But truly forgive, the kind that allows a fresh start. "You know, Miles, I think so. I think I've forgiven him. I was just afraid to admit it." The boy smiled, satisfied, and went back to drawing as if he had solved a big problem. That night, Claire stayed late because Miles asked her to read a story before bed. When the boy finally fell asleep, she went downstairs and found Raphael in the living room, working on his laptop. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. He closed the computer immediately, eager. "Of course, always." Claire sat on the sofa opposite him, gathering her courage. "I want you to know that I understand why you hesitated that day. I understand the fear, the insecurity, the trauma of losing your wife so suddenly. I understand that trusting again must be terrifying for you." Raphael stared at her, not daring to interrupt. "And I also want you to know that I've forgiven you, truly. Not because you convinced me with flowers and pretty notes, but because I realized that all of us make mistakes when we're afraid. And you were terrified of opening up again, of feeling again." "Claire, let me finish. I've forgiven you, but that doesn't mean I'm ready to jump headfirst into whatever this is between us. I still need time. I need to see every day that you've truly changed, that you trust me, that you won't abandon me when things get difficult again." Raphael stood up and went to sit beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I'll prove it every day, and if it takes months, years, a lifetime, it doesn't matter. You're worth the wait." Claire felt her eyes fill with tears. "Just don't give up on me, okay? Even when I'm difficult, when I put up walls, when I'm afraid, don't give up. Never, I promise." And then, for the first time in weeks, they hugged. It wasn't a romantic hug. It was a hug of two wounded people finding solace in each other. It was a hug of new beginnings, of hope, of second chances. The months that followed were of slow and careful reconstruction. Claire was officially hired as Miles's nanny, now with a signed contract, benefits and all rights. But she was much more than a nanny. She was part of the family, even if she didn't yet admit it out loud. Raphael kept his promise. Every day he proved that he deserved her trust. He consulted her on important decisions, asked for her opinion, showed through actions that she was valued. He never hesitated again, never doubted again. When problems arose, they talked together, solved them together. And little by little, without them realizing exactly when it happened, the distance between them diminished. The conversations in the kitchen returned, but now they were deeper, more genuine. Shared dinners became a tradition. Miles was radiant seeing the two interact, knowing that his family was forming in a new and beautiful way. One December evening, after putting Miles to bed, Raphael invited Claire to walk in the garden. The Christmas lights were on in the trees. creating a magical atmosphere. "There's something I want to show you," he said, leading her to where they had planted the sunflowers months ago. The flowers had grown enormous, tall, beautiful, turning towards where the sun rose every morning. "Remember when you told Miles that sunflowers always turn towards the light?" Raphael asked. "I remember. You are the light of this house, Claire. You are the light of Miles's life, and mine too. I spent 4 years living in darkness, thinking I would never see the sun again, but you arrived and illuminated everything." Claire felt her heart race. "Raphael, I know we're still rebuilding trust. I know you're still afraid and that I need to earn that every day, but I want you to know that I love you. I love your affectionate way, your strength, your ability to see beauty where others only see pain. I love how you care for my son, how you transformed our house into a home again, and I will love you for the rest of my life, whether you're ready to hear that or not." Claire was crying now, but they were good tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've loved you for months, but I was so afraid to admit it, afraid of being rejected, of not being enough, of being just a temporary replacement." Raphael held her face in his hands carefully, as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "You were never a replacement. You are unique. You are the one I want, the one I choose, the one I love." And then they kissed, finally, under the Christmas lights and the sunflowers they had planted together. It was a kiss full of promises of new beginnings, of healing. It was the kiss of two people who had crossed through pain and found love on the other side. From his bedroom window, Miles watched everything with a huge smile on his face. His plan had worked. He had managed to make the two of them admit what was obvious to anyone with eyes. His family was complete again, but in a totally new way. It wasn't about replacing the mother he had lost. It was about gaining someone who chose to love him without obligation, simply because she wanted to. The following year was one of full happiness. Claire moved into the mansion, not as an employee, but as Raphael's partner and Miles's maternal figure. The boy prospered in ways no one would have imagined possible. He went back to school, made friends, participated in activities. He still had difficult days, moments when the longing for his mother tightened, but now he had a solid support network to hold him. The family also paid tribute to Marianne, keeping her memory alive in a healthy way. Claire never tried to erase the past or take her place. Instead, she honored who Marianne had been, encouraged Miles to share memories, and thus created a bridge between the past and the present. Mrs. Regina and Julia also became part of their lives. Sunday dinners at the mansion, with everyone gathered, laughing, telling stories. Claire's mother could finally slow down her work because Raphael insisted on helping her financially. Julia earned a scholarship to a good school, also provided by Raphael, who saw it not as charity, but as caring for the family of the woman he loved. One Saturday morning in April, Raphael woke Claire with coffee in bed and an envelope. "What's this?" she asked, sleepy. "Open it and see." Inside the envelope was a drawing by Miles. It showed 3 people holding hands under an arch of flowers. He had written in crooked letters, "My family forever." "He wants us to get married," Raphael said, taking a small box from his pocket. "And I want to, too. Claire Madison, will you marry me? Will you officially become part of this crazy family you helped rebuild?" Claire was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, yes, I accept." Raphael placed the ring on her finger, a simple white gold band with a small diamond. It wasn't ostentatious, but it was perfect. And then Miles ran into the room, jumping onto the bed between them. "She said yes. She said yes." "She did." Claire hugged the boy. "We're going to be an official family. Finally. It took too long." The wedding took place 3 months later in July in the mansion's garden. It was a small and intimate ceremony with only family and closest friends. Miles was the page boy, wearing a small suit and carrying the rings with the responsibility of someone carrying the most important mission in the world. Claire wore a simple white lace dress with natural flowers in her hair. Raphael couldn't hold back tears when she appeared, walking down the carpet of petals they had spread on the grass. She was radiant, happy, finally home. When they exchanged vows, they weren't just memorized words. They were true promises, born of everything they had faced together. I promise to believe in you, even when circumstances seem to say otherwise, Raphael said. I promise never to hesitate again, never to doubt again. I promise to be your safe harbor in any storm. I promise to love you not despite your scars, but along with them, Claire said. I promise to honor the past as we build the future. I promise to be patient on difficult days and present on good days. Miles cried, Mrs. Regina cried, even the toughest friends had tears in their eyes. It was impossible not to be moved seeing that family that had been broken, finding healing through love and persistence. The reception was simple but joyful. Music, dancing, delicious food prepared by Carla, who now adored Claire after understanding how she had been manipulated by Stella. The former staff, Jessica and Nora, were also there, having offered sincere apologies for believing the lies. When night fell and the guests left, Raphael, Claire and Miles stayed in the garden, lying on the grass looking at the stars. Thank you, Miles said suddenly. For what, my love? Claire asked. For not giving up on us, for coming back even when you had every right to leave and never look back, for teaching me that it's possible to be happy again, even after losing someone you love. Claire hugged the boy, her heart overflowing. Thank you too, for being brave enough to let someone new into your heart, for giving me a chance when you had every reason not to trust anyone. Raphael hugged them both, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. His family was complete, not in the way he had once imagined, but in an even more beautiful way because it had been chosen, consciously built day after day. 6 months later, on a January morning, Claire woke up feeling nauseous. At first, she thought she had eaten something that disagreed with her, but when the nausea persisted for a week, she decided to take a test. And there it was, clear and distinct, 2 pink lines. She was pregnant. She told Raphael first, who was so emotional he couldn't speak for a few minutes. Then they told Miles together, with a little apprehension about how he would react. The boy, now 9 years old and much more mature, looked at the ultrasound they had shown him and smiled in the most genuine way possible. I'm going to be a big brother. That's awesome. Can I help take care of the baby? Of course you can, my love. It will be your little brother or sister. Do you think Mama Marianne is happy for me up there? Claire felt her eyes well up with tears. Miles still called Marianne Mama and had started calling her Mama Claire or just Claire, which was perfectly fine with her. She never wanted to erase Marianne's memory, just add her own love to that boy's life. I'm sure she's very happy, Miles, and very proud of the incredible boy you've become. The pregnancy went smoothly. Miles was enchanted watching Claire's belly grow, talked to the baby every day, saying he would be the best brother in the world. Raphael was overly cautious, wanting Claire not to exert herself at all, which sometimes annoyed her, but always made her laugh. In September, a beautiful baby girl was born. They named her Sophia Marianne, honoring Miles's mother, in a way that kept her memory alive without burden or sadness. When Miles held his little sister for the first time with all the care in the world, Claire and Raphael knew they had done everything right. Hi, Sophia, Miles whispered to the baby. I'm your big brother. I'm going to take care of you forever. I'm going to teach you everything I know. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be the best brother you could ever have. I promise. Sophia opened her little eyes and seemed to look directly at him, and Miles smiled in a way that lit up the entire room. That night, with Sophia sleeping in her crib, Miles lying in his own bed dreaming of all the things he would teach his sister, Raphael and Claire stayed awake, embracing, reflecting on everything they had been through. Who would have thought, right, Raphael said, that from that horrible day when we unjustly accused you, all this would emerge? Sometimes I think we needed to go through all that to value what we have now, to understand that trust is built every day, that true love survives storms, that family isn't just about blood, it's about choice. You taught me so much, Claire. You taught me to trust again, to love again, to believe that it's possible to start over even after the worst losses. And you taught me that I was strong enough to fight for what I want, that I deserve to be loved, to be valued, to be part of something bigger. They were silent for a moment, just enjoying the peace of that house that had seen so much pain, but was now filled with love. Claire, Hmm? Thank you for not giving up on us. She smiled in the dark. Thank you for giving me reasons to stay. And so, in that mansion and London that had once been a stage for tragedy, pain and manipulation, now lived a reconstructed family. It wasn't perfect because families never are. They still had difficult days, moments when the past hurt, occasions when they disagreed or argued. But they had something much more important than perfection. They had commitment, they had love, they had the courage to choose each other every day. Miles grew up strong and healthy, overcoming his traumas, but never forgetting the mother he lost. He learned that it's possible to carry love for two mothers in your heart, that one doesn't erase the other, that the human heart has infinite capacity when allowed to feel. Sophia grew up surrounded by love, knowing from the start the story of how her family came to be. She knew Marianne through the stories Miles told, through the photos scattered around the house, through the love everyone still had for her. Claire never went back to nursing school. She discovered that her vocation for care was being perfectly fulfilled by caring for that family, but she financially supported other young women in similar situations to hers, creating a foundation that offered scholarships to girls from humble families who wanted to go to college in the health field. Raphael learned that success is not measured only in closed deals and profits achieved. He slowed down his work to be more present at home, not to miss important moments, to be the father and husband he always wanted to be but never knew how, until Claire taught him. And Stella? She served her sentence for her crimes, lost everything she had stolen, and was eventually released. She tried to make contact a few times, asking for forgiveness. But Raphael and Claire decided that some bridges are better left burned, so not out of revenge, but for the protection of the peace they had built with so much effort. Years later, on a sunny Sunday, the family was gathered in the garden. Miles, now 15, was flying a kite with Sophia, who was 6. Claire was pregnant again, this time with a boy they decided to name David, in honor of her brother. Raphael was preparing a barbecue, surrounded by Mrs. Regina, Julia, who was now a qualified teacher, and several friends who had become part of their extended family. Claire looked at that scene, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She thought of the insecure young woman she was when she first stepped into that mansion, just wanting to earn some extra money to pay for college. She never imagined she would find a son to love, a man to share her life with, an entire family to call her own. She also thought about how unpredictable life is, how moments of pain can turn into seeds of joy, how the greatest blessings sometimes come disguised as challenges, how true love is not that which never faces storms, but that which learns to dance in the rain. "What are you thinking about?" Raphael approached, wrapping his arms around her from behind, placing his hands on her belly. "How lucky I am, how I almost let all this slip away because I was afraid of getting hurt again. And how I almost destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was afraid to trust. But we didn't destroy it, did we? We fought, we persevered, we believed it was worth it. And it was. It was worth every tear, every difficult moment, every time we had to choose to trust when it would have been easier to give up." Sophia came running, throwing herself between the two. "Mom, Dad, look how high my kite is flying." Miles joined them, already almost as tall as Raphael. "That's because I taught you properly," he teased, ruffling his sister's hair. "No way, I'm just talented." And there, in that garden full of laughter and love, surrounded by the people they chose and who chose them back, Raphael and Claire understood the true meaning of family. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about never making mistakes. It wasn't about always having the right answer. It was about enduring, about choosing love even when it's difficult, about forgiving even when it hurts, about rebuilding even when everything seems destroyed, about believing that, in the end, love always wins. And they had won. Not against external enemies, but against their own fears, their own insecurities, their own wounds. They had won together, and that victory was sweeter than any other could be. The journey that began with pain, trauma, and distrust had transformed into a story of healing, hope, and unconditional love. And this story would continue to be written chapter by chapter, day after day, by a family that understood the true value of not giving up on each other. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Claire, Raphael, and Miles has deeply touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of overcoming, forgiveness, and love, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which moment affected you the most. Was it Claire's courage in facing injustice? Was it the moment Miles could finally trust again? Or was it Raphael's persistence in winning back the love he almost lost? Every day we bring intense stories like this, which reveal the deepest side of the human soul, showing that even in the most difficult situations, it is possible to find hope and start over. Because in the end, what defines us are not the blows we take, but our ability to get up and choose love again. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode with another story that will stir your emotions. See you soon.